The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They were very contented, with plenty to eat and drink. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River in the north to the land of the Philistines and the border of Egypt in the south. The conquered peoples of those lands sent tribute money to Solomon and continued to serve him throughout his lifetime. Solomon's dominion extended over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River, from Tifhash to Gaza, and there was peace on all his borders. During the lifetime of Solomon, all of Judah and Israel lived in peace and safety. And from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, each family had its own home and garden. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright, so now we're looking at 1 Kings chapter 4. Solomon has been made king, and after sort of handling some potential threats or opposition, or even just people that had caused his father David some trouble, then he winds up having God come to him in a dream, ask what he wants, and Solomon asks for wisdom, especially wisdom in ruling over Israel. And so, God basically tells Solomon, all right, good answer. So I will give you that, as well as fame and fortune and other things that you did not ask for that are good things that people usually would ask for. And then we got an example of his wisdom as he's presented with a case of two mothers. One has a living son, the other's son died, but they were born really close to the sons were born really close to each other, so it was a little more difficult than it normally would have been to tell the difference between them. But he basically, kind of seeks, he tries to get to their hearts and how they feel about the overall situation truly and honestly, and uses that to discern who the real mother is. And the people seeing and hearing the wisdom of Solomon's judgment are kind of amazed at this. Because it wasn't even just a typical way of going about it. He basically threatened the living son's life. And the mother that, cared enough to say, no, keep him alive, give him to the other woman. I'm fine with it as long as he lives. He used that response to determine, okay, she's the real mother, especially because the other woman was like, yeah, sure, do it, I don't care. Then neither of us will have living sons. That kind of attitude doesn't bode well for motherhood. So anyway, so now that we've seen a demonstration of Solomon's wisdom, we move along to 1 Kings chapter 4. King Solomon now ruled over all Israel, and these were his high officials. Azariah, son of Zadok, was the priest. Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, were court secretaries. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was commander of the army. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. Is that the same Zadok that was father of Azariah up here? Not sure. Maybe. I mean, they could have both been priests. It's just maybe since Solomon was a new generation of king, he chose a new generation of priests to fill a specific role. I forget if Zadok was supposed to be like David's personal priest, as they called it. If that was the case, it would make kind of even more sense to move to the next generation for that specific role. But I would wager, if I had to, that this Zadok and Abiathar are the same ones that were priests under David. And it seems like a lot of what we're going to read for a little while here is just going to be people who had important roles under King Solomon. So, let's continue. Verse 5. Azariah, son of Nathan, was in charge of the district governors. Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest, was a trusted advisor to the king. Ahishar was manager of the palace property, and Adoniram, son of Abda, was in charge of forced labor. So, now we've got sons of Nathan involved here. Nathan was the one prophet who had sort of called David out after he had slept with Bathsheba and gotten Uriah killed. So, it seems like a lot of these people that Solomon is choosing were either related, were either the same people that David had in some of these positions, or sons of those men. In charge of forced labor, so I guess just, I don't know if taskmaster would be the right title there, but and manager of the palace property, I guess that's what you'd call in charge of facilities in the modern day. Okay, verse 7. Solomon also had 12 district governors who were over all Israel. They were responsible for providing food for the king's household. Each of them arranged provisions for 1 month of the year. These are the names of the 12 governors: Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, Ben-Decker in Makaz, Shalbim, Beth-Shemesh, and Elon Beth-Hanan, Ben-Hesed in Aruboth, including Soko and all the land of Hefer, Ben-Abinadab in all of Naphoth Dor. He was married to Tephath, one of Solomon's daughters. Bainah, son of Ahilud, in Tanakh and Megiddo, all of Bethshan near Zarethan below Jezreel, and all the territory from Bethshan to Abel Meholah, and over to Jokmeam. Okay, so I was like, okay, wait, we've got Ben-Hur, Ben-Decker, Ben-Hesed. Like, are all these people going to be Ben whatever? Maybe. Or at least a lot of them seem to be. Or if not, then there are other similar names, it seems. Makes me wonder if that was somewhat of a title, or maybe if just the significance of the Ben part of their names kind of lent itself to a certain disposition that would be helpful in a role like this. I don't know. Also, did I miss any? Okay, didn't miss any notes before. If there were any in the previous chapter, I did not even point them out. Apologies for lacking on that. Note there at Nafathor, variant spelling, Nafathor, okay, so whatever. Same place, though. Bethshan. Hebrew spells it a little differently. Okay. Oh, that was also giving a different Hebrew spelling. Anyway. Okay. More, governors. We've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. So, more of these governors that are in charge of arranging provisions for the king and the palace. Providing food for the king's household. Yeah. I guess because the king didn't specifically, like, you know, have an allotment of land, it was a situation similar to the priests and Levites who, I mean, the priests and Levites specifically got their portions that they lived off of from people's offerings. In this case, it seems like each tribe kind of had a representative, and, you know, basically 1 month out of the year, each tribe was kind of responsible for giving an allotment of things, food, you know, provisions and whatnot, to the king and his household so they could get by with... So that the king and his household could get by without having their own specific allotment of land. Maybe. I might be reading a little too much into that, but... I don't know, that's what makes the most sense out of all this to me. Unless this was also just sort of a way of each tribe kind of like paying a tribute. So, continuing with names of other governor-type people in verse 13. So we have Ben-Geber in Ramoth Gilead, including the towns of Jair, named for Jair of the tribe of Manasseh, in Gilead, and in the Argob region of Bashan, including 60 large fortified towns with bronze bars on their gates. And we have Ahinadab, son of Iddo, in Mahanaim, Ahimaaz in Naphtali. He was married to Basemeth, another of Solomon's daughters. So 2 of these guys are married to Solomon's daughters. We have Baana, son of Hushai, in Asher and in Aloth. Jehoshaphat, son of Paruah, in Issachar. Shimei, son of Elah, in Benjamin. Not the previous Shimei who had cursed David. And lastly, we have Geber, son of Uri, in the land of Gilead, including the territories of King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. There was also 1 governor over the land of Judah. So, some of these territories, I guess, might have been part of the Promised Land, but were places that weren't conquered in the initial push by Joshua and them, potentially, or there were other surrounding areas where Israel had kind of expanded to. Anyway, all these guys were pretty much just, they were possibly governors slash rulers over these areas in that way, but also, like, it states specifically that they were responsible for providing food for the king's household. And a lot of them are named like Ben something or other, or Bena, or maybe that's more accurately pronounced like Baana. Of course, the ones that don't fit that either of those naming conventions are Ahinadab, Ahimaaz, Jehoshaphat, Shimei, and Geber. So it's not just that, oh yeah, this is, you know, a title or name given for one who is a governor. Note there. Hebrew says Jair, son of Manasseh, rather than named for Jair of the tribe of Manasseh. It's similar thing though. Note there, Judah, as in some Greek manuscripts, Hebrew lacks of Judah. So the Hebrew doesn't exactly specify where this last unnamed governor was in charge of. So they pulled from the Greek when looking at that. Oh, also note there at Gilead, Greek version reads of Gad instead of Gilead. So maybe a slightly different region. Either way, it's not completely clear. I mean, just looking at all these place names and descriptions, that this actually covered the entire territory of the 12 tribes of Israel or anything like that. It may have covered even more than that. But anyway, point being, 12 guys that were in charge of all that, and it's just kind of breaking down where each one was, like, which areas each one was responsible for. Okay. So then we get to verse 20. The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They were very contented, with plenty to eat and drink. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River in the north to the land of the Philistines and the border of Egypt in the south. The conquered peoples of those lands sent tribute money to Solomon and continued to serve him throughout his lifetime. Note there, Euphrates River, Hebrew just says the river, but we've had this note in previous books of the Bible at least, and it's kind of implied that when it says the river, it's referring to the Euphrates River. Kind of like, you know, if you live in a certain area and you talk about going to the ocean or whatever. Like if you're living on the east coast of the U.S. and you talk about going to the ocean, you probably mean the Atlantic and not the Pacific. Notes after where it says plenty to eat and drink. Oh, so it just says verses... Okay, chapter 4, verses 21 to 34 are numbered chapter 5, verses 1 to 14 in the Hebrew text. But this does seem... I mean, especially given verse 20 here, this part seems fairly relevant and related to that. So, yeah. Again, that's not necessarily a big deal. Just anything that's different in different, you know, source texts. It's kind of the translator's duty to point out that, like, hey, there's this potential difference here, just so you know. Anyway, so people lived well, and everything was pretty good. Then we get to verse 22. The daily food requirements for Solomon's palace were 150 bushels of choice flour and 300 bushels of meal. Also 10 oxen from the fattening pens, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep or goats, as well as deer, gazelles, roe deer, and choice poultry. So, when it was talking about those governors earlier and, you know, providing food for the king's household, this is what all that they were in charge of giving. Which is quite a bit. And that's daily? I mean, it sure sounds like a lot anyway. Must have been a lot of people in Solomon's palace then. Note there at bushels of meal. Hebrew says 30 cores of choice flour and 60 cores of meal. So, meal as in, like, oatmeal kind of stuff. So we're clear on that. Note that poultry could be read as fattened geese. I mean, that's just a more specific kind of poultry, I guess. Poultry is pretty much any bird turned into food. Okay. Verse 24. Solomon's dominion extended over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River, from Tiphash to Gaza, and there was peace on all his borders. During the lifetime of Solomon, all of Judah and Israel lived in peace and safety. And from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, each family had its own home and garden. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for his chariot horses, and he had 12,000 horses. So, 3 horses per stall? Unless maybe not all the chariot... Unless maybe not all of his horses were for chariots. I don't know. So, just... Again, given the section subtitle here, we're getting a lot in... This seems to be digging a lot more into the prosperity of Solomon and his kingdom. And just, like, how well supplied everything was. Note there... Hebrew says each family lived under its own grapevine and under its own fig tree. I mean... I guess fig trees... I don't know if those were seen as, like, sheltering kinds of trees, but anyway. Similar kind of overall meaning, though, basically saying that, like, every family in Israel and Judah, you know, had enough to get by with their own stuff. Hebrew says 40,000 stalls. 4,000 comes from the Greek. And the 12,000 horses could be read as 12,000 charioteers, which would make more sense if there were 40,000 horses. But anyway. Lots of horses and chariots and things like that. Okay. Verse 27. The district governors faithfully provided food for King Solomon and his court. Each made sure nothing was lacking during the month assigned to him. They also brought the necessary barley and straw for the royal horses and stables. Horses in the stables. God gave Solomon very great wisdom and understanding, and knowledge as vast as the sands of the seashore. In fact, his wisdom exceeded that of all the wise men of the East and the wise men of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezrahite and the sons of Mahol, Heman, Calcol, and Darda. His fame spread throughout all the surrounding nations. He composed some 3,000 proverbs and wrote 1,005 songs. He could speak with authority about all kinds of plants, from the great cedar of Lebanon to the tiny hyssop that grows from cracks in a wall. He could also speak about animals, birds, small creatures, and fish. And kings from every nation sent their ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. And that actually further contributed to the prosperity of Israel and Judah, because these people would come seeking wisdom from Solomon, and as, part of their payment for that wisdom, or a tribute or whatever, they would generally also bring some sort of riches or supplies or something. So that gets into the wisdom. We had a lot more about the prosperity there, but we already had a hint of Solomon's wisdom before. And now, last chapter, I kind of focused maybe a little too much on the fact that Solomon was asking for wisdom in ruling his people. And this seems to indicate that, yeah, okay, Solomon's wisdom extended well beyond that, too. I mean, including knowledge of different kinds of plants and animals, birds, other living creatures, and so, yeah, still doesn't say that, Solomon knew everything, but he knew a lot, and the fact that he was so wise just further added to the seemingly already significant prosperity of Israel and Judah. So that's where we leave things off for 1 Kings chapter 4. So I think the main thing to emphasize out of all of this is where it basically mentions that all of Israel and Judah prospered while Solomon was king. Or at least they all had enough to sustain themselves, seemingly without needing to incur any kind of debt or, relying too much on other people to help them get by. But I will also note, especially given some of the examples mentioned near the end, it seems almost like wisdom and knowledge get conflated a little bit here. Because that sounds a lot more like, Solomon just knowing a lot of things. But, I mean, we did, see/hear about a situation in the last chapter where that was definitely more of a wisdom kind of thing. So, not necessarily saying that he wasn't wise, it's just like, maybe it was all of the above. Maybe he was given extraordinary knowledge and wisdom. But anyway, that's just sort of a tangential thing, no big deal. Point being, Solomon was very knowledgeable and discerning, and things generally went really well while he was king. So anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video and want others to see. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with my latest videos as I post them. Make sure you look down in the description for links to other social media pages and a link to my Discord server if you want to hang out there and chat about stuff in between videos. Also, link to a supporter page there if you want to help me out a little bit with, freeing up some more time and money and things like that to further dedicate myself to what I'm doing here. And if you sign up for a membership, you can get some benefits in exchange. And then, of course, down below all that, leave comments with any thoughts or questions you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.